almost like, potatoes in a bag, like rubbing against each other. Sometimes there's friction and it's challenging, but we polish each other in the end to be the most beautiful potatoes that we can be.
Hello, I'm Ian. I was born and raised in Brazil, and I'm 33 years old. I'm an educator and currently pursuing my master's degree in socioanthropology, education, and queer studies.
Hi, my name's Bernie. I was born in Hackney in East London. I'm now retired. I used to be a multimedia trainer, and now I'm living in an old farmhouse up a mountain, raising chickens, and I have a rice paddy and living happily ever after.
Hi, I'm Kirsten, and I've been practicing Buddhism my entire life. My parents started in the late 60s, and as a result of their Buddhist practice, I came to be in the world. Now I work as a Japanese to English translator and editor. Hi, Ian. Hi, Bernie.
Hello.
How you doing today?
Pretty good.
So we're going to talk about self-improvement. What does that bring to mind for you in terms of your Buddhist experience? Or
I suppose for me, when I first started practicing in London, when I met Hiromi at a jazz workshop, straight away it was working for me. This was really different. I think through the chanting, I really was opening up and becoming more real, I think. So I managed to forge a wonderful relationship with Hiromi. We've now been married for 23 years. So
Wow.
absolutely remarkable.
wow. So through your chanting of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, you were changing your
I was changing a lot. I was becoming a lot more sincere. I was 46. I was beginning to feel a bit jaded, very overweight. And I think with the chanting, I became more sincere, helped me to form a really strong relationship. And it was almost like a fusion of two people. It was absolutely marvelous.
Do you think that was some sort of like conscious or unconscious process for you?
I think at the beginning it was unconscious, and then I became conscious. Really. I thought, wow, this is really working.
Right.
I think the other thing as well, my behaviour changed a lot. I used to point the finger at a lot of people. You did this and you did that and it's your fault. But when you're doing that, there's three fingers pointing back at yourself. And that's a tough one. I've got to change.
Right,
And I didn't realise that very much. But now, if you change, your environment changes. It is absolutely remarkable.
What about you, Ian? Do you have any kind of self-improvement journey?
I'm from the third generation of Buddhist practitioners in my family, so I felt very safe and protected within my family. And then at some point in my life, I started to face anxiety and also like panic attacks. And it was on that point that I really had to work on myself, right? And I had to do things by myself, right? Because I was struggling with myself. The Soka Gakkai as a community, we're often involved into dialogues and meetings with people from our communities, right? And even though it was challenging and also depleting to go through that, I knew that by chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, something good had to come out of all of it, following through with everything that I have learned throughout my upbringing.
Right.
I was able to overcome that as well.
Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah, it's so interesting because I have a very similar experience to both of you. I was actually born also into a family that practices Nichiren Buddhism. It wasn't really until I got into my late teens, I guess early 20s, and started to really face some kind of inner kind of loneliness and challenges that I started to really chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo myself and really trying to do my own human revolution and really grow as a young adult,
I think one of the things I also discovered, that obstacles, that's where your happiness actually lies, is overcoming obstacles. Once you start practicing, you're thinking differently. And also you can chant for people that are ill, you can chant for your family, you can chant for friends.
A point that Bernie brought up is that sometimes when we're thinking about our self-improvement, right? Sometimes we're just thinking about how can we be better for ourselves. But sometimes even when we see flaws on other people or people bother us for whatever reason, when we do our Buddhist practice towards those people, right? As Bernie said, we end up doing the self-improvement in ourselves, right?
You know, whenever I read President Ikeda's guidance and his writings, you know, it always comes back to us. We have the power to change our feelings toward the situation. If they've wronged us, getting to the point where we can chant for their happiness, because obviously a happy person doesn't treat people that way. Chanting for somebody else changes something inevitably. That always makes me feel empowered. I have the power. Just that empowerment I find to be such a benefit of doing this practice.
I was thinking about the other thing that really started when I first started practicing was I used to worry about the future a lot, or what people had said. Why did they said that? So why waste all that energy, all that worry? Going for an interview job, I would chant, but when I meet this person, we're really going to connect. It really does work, you know.
It is true.
Absolutely remarkable.
Yes.
The Gohonzon that we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to is a hope-producing machine. We do have the ability to create hope in our own lives, and we do it every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're so surrounded by negative news. Of course, we should not turn our backs to those things, but sometimes we get so alienated that that's the only thing we can see in reality, right? So even though you don't really see the ideal scenario in front of you, you're fearful, you have fear of reality, your levels of hope are super high because you believe that you can change things somehow.
I love that.
As a community in the SGI, we're also surrounded by all these good things, right? And how can we transform our lives? And how can we believe in the inner potential and dignity of everyone's life around us?
Yeah.
I think that's why the meetings, when we have go to a Buddhist local meeting, it is so remarkable because everybody's non-judgmental. My first meeting I went to was quite remarkable because it was in a dodgy bit of Hackney where I lived in London. And one of the women said to me, "Oh, is your mum Lily Goldman?" I said, "That's right. Wow, I'm looking after your mum in the old people's home." Wow, I mean, that's one of the things about its practice. These things just keep happening all the time. It's absolutely remarkable.
My parents started practicing in Los Angeles in the late 60s. Vietnam War was happening. Martin Luther King had been assassinated. There was just upheaval, and they were feeling hopeless. They thought, we're not going to bring children into this horrible world. They were in a cafe, and someone sitting next to them said, "Have you heard about chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo?" And they took them to a meeting right then and there. And my parents were so inspired by the idea that you could make a difference, that they decided to start practicing, and they decided to have a child. For me, that was kind of my first benefit of Buddhist practice, I think. The fact that these two people who had no hope, and just from doing this practice felt hope enough to then bring life into the world, I'm so grateful, you know, for what we have here.
I was very curious to know, how did you come to enjoy the chanting of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo?
I think for me, straight away, I was instant. I think I was half Buddhist anyway, really. You know, I was a hippie when I was a teenager, so I didn't have to go very far to want everybody to be happy and have world peace. I really like the sound of it. Chanting with other people is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know there was like a certain point per se, but it's never like, oh, I have to go chant now. It's like a part of my nourishment of, you know, of my life. Did you have a point where you started to enjoy it?
Yes, I think it took a while. It was as a young adult that I really started to understand the importance of it. It is just incredible how it completely changes your perspective of things. So whenever I'm at a place that I don't know what to do, I sit in front of the Buddhist altar and then I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And then it's not that they're magically changed, but it's the way I look at them that is changed.
Well, they say it's a process of observing the mind. I think you mentioned that, Bernie, that when you chant, you can see yourself from kind of almost like the Buddha perspective. To start and end the day like that, I think is a beautiful practice.
And I think also, once you start practicing, you begin to realize, what are the important things in my life? Who am I? What are the important things? If you want the Porsche, okay, no problem. But you could save an absolute fortune by starting to practice, because you're like, no, I don't actually need that. I'm very happy just doing this or doing that, which is amazing.
So I guess, we've been chatting for a while now, and do you have any final kind of thoughts about how your practice has enabled you to grow as a person, or kind of what that has meant to you in your life?
I think in my relationships, definitely, 100%, with Hiromi, my wife.
Yeah.
As we both chant in the morning together, we chant in the evening together, I really feel that whatever comes up, we don't actually argue, we might discuss, I would say. I'm definitely a lot more thoughtful about what I'm saying, Like I said about, Nichiren Daishonin said, a man's downfall comes from his mouth, which is so true, So I'm really glad now, I'm thinking a bit more before I say something,
Yeah. There's this saying that is, wherever you go, there you are, right? And I look at my own marriage and my own relationship with my husband, and almost like, potatoes in a bag, like rubbing against each other. Sometimes there's friction and it's challenging, but we polish each other in the end to be the most beautiful potatoes that we can be. And us being able to chant together, even when we're kind of at odds with one another, really enables us to overcome this stuff. And I feel that it has really enabled me to grow as a person, instead of blaming him for things. I mean, all over President Ikeda's guidance, he's really encourages us, when we change, the situation changes. And I always go back to that. And we really have been able to grow together.
Yeah, that is great. I do believe that even though we're talking about self-improvement, we're always connecting it to other people as well, right? In my case, I could totally see it within my family, because we all practice Buddhism. But then things weren't really moving positively, even within the familiar harmony and relationship, right?
Sometimes it can be the hardest in that situation.
Exactly, right? So how do we change things when those things are people, right? One way that we could see change positively was when we started to work with people outside the family, right? So at first, our Buddhist practice was very self-centered. When we took the chance to actually work with the people of our community, that's when we started to change our lives, and we improved individually, right? So then we started to get more active into the community activities within the SGI. And that ultimately transformed the family from outside in and inside out at the same time. There's no self-improvement if I cannot also give or donate that improvement to others as well.
You're right, it's an absolute connection with the world around us.
Yes.
And,
I think also as well is
beautiful.
that, with this practice, okay, you failed yesterday, it didn't quite work out. Today's another day, from this day onwards.
Yeah.
With self-improvement. Okay, I didn't manage it yesterday. I'm still going to keep going though. And you just keep going.
Yeah, looking
You don't give
forward.
up. You just
Looking
never
forward,
give up.
yeah.
That's right.
As a Buddhist, you never give up.
That's right. I love it. Thank you. Yeah.
Is that good?
I think that's a good note to end on. I mean.
I was like, can we go better than that?